Do not attempt to perform similar stunts with your own FileMaker servers unless you're trying to get the attention of your boss. The server crashes in today's broadcast are performed by certified professionals. Do not attempt this at home. Viewer discretion is advised. All right, everyone, welcome to another awesome broadcast. Today's broadcast is going to be about PayPal. We're going to have a slight delay while the broadcast is coming up. Looks like it's gone live, so welcome, everyone. Today's about PayPal. So last week, the week before, we've been teaching about JSON. A lot of you already know JSON. Ruben and a bunch of experts here already know JSON. So today is kind of a conversation we haven't had in a very, very long time. We've never had this conversation during a 1 o'clock live stream. We've had it before in recorded videos. So what I want to talk about is interacting with PayPal and why you might need this or might want to think about it. So first off, if you want this, this is a free, it's more free stuff, so more free, right? So all of you like, Richard doesn't give us enough free stuff. This is, you go to FM Starting Point, which is another free thing, but then you can hit the marketplace up here. This marketplace predates the Claire's marketplace. It has all sorts of awesome stuff in it. And one of the things it has in it, if you scroll down, is the PayPal sample file. And so the guy who built this for me is here in the broadcast, John Hogle. He's a really talented developer, and we're happy to have him here. And so what we want to do is talk about this sample file. Let's talk about how this all came about. So first off, the mother of invention. So I'm taking one of my engineers, his name's Garrett, taking him to lunch in Texas back when he was working there. Now he works out of Colorado, although it's all virtual now. Doesn't really matter where people are at. But he was in Texas, and I took him and his wife to dinner along with my wife, and we're sitting there chatting, and they started talking about, well, she runs this home business, and she does this like designer clothing thing. And he built the thing for her, because he's a FileMaker guy, builds FileMaker for all sorts of people. He goes, I built a FileMaker little thing so she can charge and collect money on PayPal and have it feed in the FileMaker. I'm like, holy shit, I need that, like yesterday. And so he's like, oh, well, he built a little sample file, sent it to me, and it worked. And so I gave it to John Hogle, and we've integrated it into our system. So if you've ever paid RCC for almost anything, you've been involved one way or another in our PayPal. So let's talk about the two sides of PayPal. We're talking about one side specifically today. So if you have a website and you go through a shopping cart, or you say buy this item, and you go through this online experience where you check out, and it's all kind of like through this web interface, right? Browser interface, like a shopping cart, then that's not what we're talking about here. That's where you build a custom web page, and then PayPal, what it does, actually sends our FileMaker server an email through the internet, not an email. It sends a HTTP request. It's kind of like an email, but HTTP request that goes to our server that tells our FileMaker server that a transaction has occurred, and it passes the necessary information. So that is when you buy our training, that's what you see. However, if you buy like coaching from us, for example, or you have a block of coaching or something like that, what happens is that we will, on our site in FileMaker, go in and create an invoice for you, okay? It's a pre-canned invoice that's specific to you. And we press a button, it sends it to PayPal. So this is the business process. It goes to PayPal, and PayPal emails the person and says, hey, you have an invoice here. So there's other competing services out there, but PayPal is by far the biggest company. There's all sorts of other little services. People want to move money around, like, what's the one that Dana uses sometimes? It's different when people try to pay me. It has a limit of like $2,500. It does things like that. So there's other competing services, but PayPal by far is like a bank. It's one of the biggest operations out there, period. And so we use that. And so what ends up happening is that the person gets this email, and it has like a picture of the invoice on it or something like that, and they press the button in their email on their computer, and it fires the browser into PayPal, and they can either pay with a PayPal account, or they can put a credit card number in it, and it just goes through. So people get confused. I don't want to have a PayPal account. I get this all the time. I hate PayPal. PayPal isn't politically responsible, or I hate them, or whatever their issue is, right? You don't have to have a PayPal account. All it is that if you have one, you can use it, or you just use a regular checkout like a credit card or MasterCard or whatever. They charge 3.9% or whatever the current rate is that they charge. And so when they collect the money, then in their system, basically, our FileMaker system is going to talk to them and find out, oh, this has been paid and it's in the piggy bank, so now we can do the work. So we manage the process in FileMaker. We let PayPal do the money collection. But anyway, that's the PayPal process. So you manage it in FileMaker, you create the transaction in FileMaker, PayPal executes the transaction, moves the money, and then your FileMaker system can query and say, hey, has that been paid for? Has that been paid for? And if it's been paid for, then it sets a flag. So at no time do you ever see the credit card, see anything. All you do is you're talking to PayPal as it executes and collects the money and does it. Super safe, super sanitary. There's these regulations called PCI, basically different levels of PCI for credit card companies, but because of all the shenanigans with people and credit cards being stolen and businesses, Macy's department store being hacked or something or whatever it is, you don't want to be in the process of having people's credit cards. You want that to be somewhere else, and you just do the FileMaker work. And this is how to make that all work. So that's a business process. You use a webhook to talk to PayPal. So yeah, we're using API calls to talk to it. Now, at one point, people said something came up with like Claris Connect. So I'm going to deal with the Claris Connect issue real quick. So first off, someone said, well, why don't you have Claris Connect do this for you? Well, there were two issues. One is that Claris Connect doesn't connect to PayPal. At least that's the last time I checked 6 months ago. Maybe they do it now. I don't know. We can have someone check on that for us. But the other thing is that Claris Connect, every time you make a query or a request to PayPal, Claris is going to charge you for that. And I worked it out that I was going to pay. We built this. When I built this with John Hogle and I paid him to prototype and do all the stuff, it cost me to build these sample files, $5,000 to $10,000, something like that. And that's for me to build it basically from scratch. Claris would want me to pay them for Claris Connect in a similar way. I'd have to pay Claris $15,000 per year to do the same thing that I paid once for $5 to 10 grand. So it's much better. Now, in all honesty, the programming that we set up, these API calls, we're going to walk you through the mechanics of this. PayPal has changed their coding, 3 or 4 times, Hogle? John, are you there?
Yeah, I've had to do 2 emergency fixes and 1 non-emergency fix on this file itself because the way the PayPal wanted to exchange data was vastly different, and our current system just no longer worked. And so people were downloading the sample file saying, this doesn't do anything. Right.
Well, and that's the risk whenever you talk to another outside service, is that the way that outside service talks to you could change, right? The protocol. I mean, it's like if you call your babysitter, you have 3 kids and you want to go out for dinner, you have 3 kids, you call the babysitter, for example, and the babysitter speaks English. And then next time you call the babysitter, they speak Russian. And you're like pissed because the same babysitter, right? But they change languages. They don't speak English anymore. That's kind of what happens. The communications back and forth break down because typically there's a security fix involved and they do a change. Like, oh, if we speak in Russian now, no one will hear what we're saying, right? I mean, that's a kind of a goofy analogy, but you get the idea. If you don't speak Russian, you're not going to be able to talk to the babysitter, so we have to adjust things. So we've, over the course of 3 or 4 or 5 years, it's been, 3 fixes, I think? That's about what it is?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, cool. So PayPal made changes for the connection. PayPal does not charge for any of this. This is totally free, right? The only time that PayPal charges you is when they take their 3.9%. I think it's $20 a month for a business account and 3.9% on a transaction basis, right? So if you have $100 and someone spends $100 on your transaction, you're going to get 97, 96 of it back, right? That's their service fee, right? But you're going to see in this communication, we do a communication to send the invoice to them, and then we're going to do a communication to check the status of that, right? Because what we have is PayPal doesn't push us the information in these scenarios. We've chosen to have it just sit there like a bump on the log. It collects the data, and we go out and we poll, P-O-L-L, poll, not POLE like pole dancing, but poll. We are asking the PayPal service, what is the status? And it says, you've sent it to this person and we're chasing that person down, or we've sent it to that person and the person's canceled it because they could go cancel it, or they paid it as paid, right? So there's these different statuses. So you have to think about kind of your business process here. But we use this every day. We live on it. It's like, once again, we're eating our own dog food. So if you hear the dogs in the background barking and eating their Alpo dog food, then yeah, this is what we're doing. So we use FileMaker, we use PayPal, we use this exact stuff. Okay, John, why don't you show your screen and I've kind of teed it up for you. By the way, anyone who doesn't want to see, this is John. John, there you go. There's that smile. I told him to smile. Show us your screen, John Hogle.
Okay, so this is our PayPal demo file. There's kind of a lot of fields over here that don't look like they do much, but as we walk through the file, you'll sort of see why they're there and how it's set up. What I've done is I've went ahead and just made the sample invoice. I put in first name, last name, shipping info, and an email there. And I prepared everything so that we can push the invoice. So I'm going to hit this button to push to PayPal. And it's going to be created, and you'll see a few things. I'm going to go over what they all mean. So first of all, you'll notice this invoice number is the same as this invoice number because PayPal will allow you to pass along a number into PayPal. You have to be a little bit careful with this because if you duplicate an invoice, for example, and your serial numbers aren't incrementing by 1 or something like that, and you try to send it to PayPal, it'll check and say this number already exists, and you will not be able to send it to PayPal. So you can run into issues like that if you are not careful. The next thing you'll notice is that the status says that it is a draft. So the way that this works, it will create this invoice in PayPal, and it will just sit there in PayPal unless you ask it to send it. Our script does both of them, so you'll notice that we have a second request here and a first request. But if I hit this get PayPal status, you'll notice it changes to sent. That means that it's been emailed off to whoever.
So back up. So when we press the first button here, we send the invoice to PayPal, and then it confirms back that it was received. And then we send another request to say, and by the way, send this to this customer without delay, right?
That is correct. Yes, sir.
And so there's a little bit of delay in there. So initially when you do this, there's this double pass thing that goes on. Initially it says draft, right? Because it hasn't quite got to the point where it's successfully sent to the customer yet. So right. Draft is in their system, but it hasn't been sent yet. And sent means that the person has it and they're ignoring it. They deleted it. They're saving it for later, whatever. Do you have that email here somewhere we can look at?
I'm bringing it up right now. So this is the email that gets sent out. So it says that it comes from Richard Carlton Consulting. It says it's an invoice. It was sent to me. The reply to is to the business email, and I can view and pay the invoice right here. So if I click on this, it opened up a tab here. This is the invoice as it exists in PayPal. I have the option to pay the $10 here. Okay. It's going to bring this up. I'm going to say I'm going to pay with a debit card, and I'm going to enter in that information over here so that it's not on screen for everybody to see.
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
Interesting.
Nathan Schneider says, you just keep doing your thing. Nathan Schneider suggests recovering your fees by adding a percentage fee to your invoice dollar amount, right? Not a bad idea, right? If you have, especially if you have a customer that with a really big transaction, right? You're going to get into situations like I've talked to some businesses where if the business, for example, like I met a company that does maintenance on aircraft, and if you had an $8,000 or less of a transaction, they would allow you to do a credit card. But if you had to do more than $8,000 of work, they didn't want to pay the fees for that. And so they would require a wire transfer. So you get into businesses where a credit card's only good so far. So now you're back, Hogle, on your screen. Want you?
Yeah.
So you basically went through the process and paid it. And so this is still your browser, right?
Right. So if I close out this window, And I'm going to go over here. So you'll see the status here still says sent, and that's something that Richard was talking about earlier as the two different systems he was talking about. The first system is where PayPal will instantly send the information to you with an HTTP request, is what he specified, and then you get the information as soon as they pay. The second version, which is the version that this runs on, is the information still lives in PayPal, and then we send a request and we ask PayPal to let us know what the status is. So if I hit this get PayPal status here, it should update here in a moment. Did it not like me? It's still saying sent. So there is a small delay on when PayPal.
You did test this before you came on the TV show, did you not?
I did. I went all the way through this.
There's actually been cases where it gets transacted and there's a substantial 5, 10, 15. We actually had at one point where PayPal systems weren't running and then they got caught up and they were behind by hours. What if we go to the website? What is it saying?
So if I go and say this, so we have this button here. So it says view invoice in PayPal from customer perspective. This will open up the invoice that got sent out. And it is here. It also doesn't say that it's paid.
Really? Did you actually not pay it, or did you pay a wrong? Did you open a different email?
I opened the first email that was there, which is the only one I should. Oh, you know what?
You need to pay.
You're right.
Yep.
And I paid the wrong invoice.
See?
Because
that's what
I'm
happened.
good.
Yep.
At my job.
Yep.
Okay. So.
Why don't we all wait for you to pay this one? By the way, for those of you wondering about the demo link, looks like Mark's got that fixed. So if you want to, in fact, I could bring up YouTube over here. I haven't done that yet. I apologize to YouTube people, but on the Twitch people, you can definitely bring up the link and download this file for free. It's totally free. And of course, if you would like a professional to help you with this, then they would be just send an email to support@RC Consulting and ask for some help. And we'll be happy to do that for you. But if you've been, if you're kind of an intermediate developer and you've been learning JSON, things like that, there are a couple videos that we give away with this that might be enough for you to get through it.
So you'll see here the status is updated to paid.
Okay. Well, that's 33, right?
That's the one I paid, but I haven't. PayPal's behind, so I haven't gotten the email yet for 34.
Oh, you haven't got the email yet. So yeah, so normally
that's why I paid 33.
That's why you paid 33. You were confused. Yeah. So when you send this out, generally PayPal, it goes into a queue into their systems and they handle it. Most of the time it's pretty instantaneous. But I've been there where like one of their systems crashes or server goes down over the weekend or something, whatever. It goes from this big reliable company to like it feels like someone in their garage basement, right? Who's hacked this stuff together. And so then, but people keep submitting these requests, so we can keep submitting and submit and submit and submit. So it's stacking orders up in their systems. There's an order one, then order here, and then their other system comes on and it starts processing each one separately, and it has to run through and get caught up, right? Because I'm not the only one who uses this. This is a big worldwide system, right? So he says get PayPal status, and it says paid. So that's the basics of how it works. So the money is in there, and all we have to do is manage this from the FileMaker side, right? And so a lot of people would take this and they would bolt it into Starting Point or something like that. But that's kind of the idea here. So Ruben, any questions? Ed, any questions? Drafts, send, paid status. Yeah. So there's also, I guess, cancel. If you get 34, Hogle, keep an eye out for your email. If you get 34, we should cancel it or something. You can see that one, right?
Yeah. So there is a draft, a send, a cancel, a refund, and a void.
Okay. Why don't you walk through what those mean for us, right?
So draft means that the invoice exists inside PayPal, but it has never been sent to a customer.
Why don't you training a visual aid at the same time? Let's go to 34 and on FileMaker, and so yeah. So the draft. Well, we don't have a draft one, but you saw the draft. So it's created in PayPal, but not sent. Then what does sent mean?
Sent means that PayPal has taken the invoice and at least queued it to go out be sent. It's a little bit of a misnomer because technically it hasn't been sent because I don't have the email. Um, but that is what sent means. And then you have, actually, as it stands, I could cancel this invoice because I never paid it. If you're interested in me doing that, I can also
Right.
hold off.
You can cancel it from either side, right?
Yeah, so I can cancel this invoice here. So you'll see the status updated to canceled. That's not what we want.
What happened?
It said no. This is the thing that happens. That's how
That's how
all
demos.
tech demos I've ever done work. Is as soon as you get it in front of people, it decides it doesn't want to work for you.
Well, I can just tell people we use this every day, and it's very reliable. If you've got a, why don't you create a new invoice again, and we'll just walk through it, right? So
Yeah,
because you should have got the email by now. I don't know what's going on. So try to create a new invoice.
Yeah.
And
Let me
change.
just do that.
Yep.
All right, so I'll send it again to myself.
Because here's the thing with this is it's sensitive. Like for example, once you submit an invoice to PayPal, can you edit them? I don't think you can edit them back on PayPal.
You can change them.
Can you?
You can update them.
Okay.
It's kind of a pain to do. That's by far the most difficult part of coding this whole thing. But yes, it does work.
So it's better to just cancel it out and then do a new invoice from
Easier.
Yeah.
All right. So the first one, obviously, it's my name, and I can't type, but that's okay. That's true.
All right. So now what are we gonna do? So we send it.
All right.
Is that what we're gonna
So
do?
now we hit push.
Oh, you could do it. Ah.
PayPal is not liking us today.
No. There's nothing in here.
Oh, that was my fault.
Yes.
True.
So PayPal, if you send it things with like weird, too many digits on your currency, right? Like too many decimals, 531 cents or something like that. It wants. It's like QuickBooks. It doesn't want stupid data sent to it.
Right, so I'm gonna push this to PayPal.
Okay. Draft.
Did like it. We got our draft status here.
Okay.
8-4. I didn't get the email yet.
Did you check? Just click that one more time. Yeah, click that. Is that the correct address? Okay. Yep. Okay. And then we
If
check
I check
it again.
this, it'll tell it that it's been sent.
Perfect. Okay. Now, do you have it on your other email? You should have it by now. Should be like lickety split, whambo, bammo. It's good.
It usually is, but right now it's not.
Fantastic. I'm so excited.
I know, it's really good for all of us.
David says the what PayPal will validate the send status. Yeah, it's validating that the email doesn't bounce. Well, if the email bounces, does it come back to PayPal and say it bounced? Like if you have a bad address? I don't know.
No, it won't tell it that it. Well, I can try.
Well, you can't
answer,
really
but...
try right now because it's not. The good ones aren't even working at the moment.
All right, I just got that email.
You just got the three. The
$5 one, which is the one I just sent.
Yeah. So the $10 one you screwed up somehow and it died. Okay, so because I think duplicating the records is a problem. Because do you have another UUID in there besides this, a hidden number somewhere?
This invoice ID, and then there's a PayPal invoice ID, but PayPal assigns this.
Okay, so just for fun, why don't you log on to the web interface on the browser? Can you show that the web interface? So there's actually on PayPal, you can log into the web interface. Is how you kind of chase this. We saw this a second ago.
Worked with a lot of different PayPal accounts, so most of the time I tell it not to save passwords.
I got it.
Okay, so here is our.
Are we running this live mode or sandbox mode right now? It should be live, right?
It is live, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So sandbox is where you get to test, play with it and test it.
Right.
So where's all the data? Count.
This is. I'm in the PayPal developer. I need to be in the main PayPal account, don't I?
We have $9.16 in our test account. We're rich.
Yeah, it's probably from the $10 I paid a few moments ago. All right, so here is all transactions. These are the ones that were sent out. So bill 2, this is the $5 one that I got and paid. This is the $10 one I paid. PayPal's 84 cents that they took out.
And then there was the one that we sent that never. I bet $100 says that went to a different email or something, right? So that's what that happened with that one.
This one says sent, but I never got it.
Yeah. So
it must have been a typo in an email.
So here you can see the live data that matches. Basically this. We never RCC look at this. This is here during testing and also during our educational training, but we almost never look at this because once this is running over here, this is pretty damn reliable. I know we're bouncing around a little bit here, but there's something wrong with this one here. I'm pretty sure if we click on it and look at it, the email's wrong or something is why it bounced. Probably the wrong email. Jonathan Hogle. Yeah. John, is that your email?
John Hogle at RC Consulting.
Without a dot? Without a dot?
Without a dot, but it should still. Well, actually, without the period, it probably isn't the alias either. So
I hate to break it to you, that's not an approved email at this company. That's why you never got it. So that answers your question. It did not reject. It just didn't get there. So if the person bounces, then it doesn't really say the email bounced and came back, right? So there you go. PayPal developer is not available outside the United States. I don't know what the rules or regulations on that is, Ruben. Where are you at, Ruben? Do I get to ask that question? Are you in an undisclosed location? Yeah. So if you want to go ahead and so we see there's the 34 one. So this was the yeah. So this
was the one that went to the other email.
Yeah, wrong email. Right. So there you go. So the system's working fine. You just have to put good data into it, right? Which gets back to this email accuracy issue, right?
Right.
Questions from folks? Timothy, questions? Nathan, questions? Spectre 207. Where's the link for the demo file? It's right above there, but I will send this to you again. There we go. Spectre 207. There's the sample file right there. So to set this up, you want to walk us through the code over here a little bit, the JSON. We don't have to code this ourselves, but do you want to walk us kind of through this a little bit?
Yeah. I was planning on doing that. So there's two different things that will a VPN solve it. I am not sure if the VPN will allow you. Well, yeah, as long as the IP is from the US, it should work. Honestly, I'm not 100% on that. Sorry, off track. Okay, so in order to get this to work, there's sort of two things you need. The first thing that you need is a PayPal client ID and a PayPal client secret. And this is the reason you need the PayPal developer account, because you can create these credentials inside a PayPal developer account. And in order to create those, I can show you where that's done. If I can open my browser, I can, but it didn't want to. All right, it is done right in here. So you have a PayPal developer account and you click on My Apps and Credentials. It will take you here and it will ask you to create an app. You hit the Create App button. It'll ask you to name it. And then it'll say Create App and it'll give you your client ID and client secret. For obvious security reasons, I'm not going to show you the ones that we have, but that is the way that it works, and that is the way that they're generated. And what ends up happening is that we will send a request to PayPal, and PayPal will say, "Who are you? I don't know." So we're going to say, "Okay, well, here's my credentials to prove to you that I have a PayPal account. It's my client ID and my client secret." And they say, "Okay, here is a token that you can use to make a request to PayPal." It's sort of like if you were to call someone, you're trying to go to their apartment, and they have to give you the gate code to enter the apartments, or if it's a gated neighborhood, something along those lines. They give you a code. You use that to authorize who you are and let you get into the PayPal API. So that is down here where we send our information out, and then it gives us our results. Our results are the JSON. So the JSON returns, here's the ID of the invoice that you sent out. Here's the one that you gave it. This is PayPal's ID number that they have. It's behind the scenes. You don't ever really see it. This is the PayPal number, the invoice number that we gave it. So in PayPal, that's the invoice number that shows up. This is the template that we made. PayPal allows the creation of custom templates for invoices that can have more or less fields on them.
So the invoice. So once again, slow down. So I'm going to help you with that. Take a breath. Get something to drink. You're good. Take a drink. So we're talking about custom invoices. So let's talk about a couple things. Can you bring up your invoice over here real quick?
Yeah.
And then you have a drink. If you need to go take a break and get a drink, go do that. So if you scroll down here, this has certain fields on it, a certain kind of look to it. You can customize this to a degree. Can you customize it like you can customize a FileMaker invoice? No, not at all. Like, no, not only no, but hell no. What we will do at RCC is I will create an invoice. We will send as a PDF an invoice out of FileMaker to the customer. On that invoice will be a link to pay it. They will pop up an invoice which has probably definitely has the same totals on it, but the look and feel will be a little different, a little more sanitary and less awesome, shall we say. But since the dollar amounts match, people will keep this invoice out of FileMaker here. They press the button, they'll actually pay this one here. They'll use this one over here as their receipt, which is fine. It's the same invoice. It has two different visual representations. So that's a business consideration. Now, Nathan on Twitch asked a question a second ago. I think that was Nathan. Yeah, Nathan. He goes, well, what if I log in over out on this screen? Because you have the screen where we can see all the invoice, the actual, the invoices. Yeah.
This is the one.
Hit that. And then, so say we scroll down and we see that. So let me back up. So let's see. So this data here, this isn't a synchronization tool, right? There's limited synchronization going. Basically, we take the data out of FileMaker, we push it up here to PayPal. PayPal collects the data and sets a single flag or field as paid, probably a transaction ID or something like that, and we sync that data back to FileMaker. If we change the data in here, FileMaker doesn't know it. We could come in here and change the dollar amount. We could change it's for, Hovid Delta for Nick. He wants Hovid 12, not Hovid 6. And so you could change all sorts of stuff here. FileMaker won't know. So coming in here to make a change to the description or change the dollar amount is problematic. It's not a legit, like full-blown synchronization tool. It's not what it's for. And I can tell you after using this for 4 or 5 years, it's totally unnecessary. What happens is if you create an invoice over here that the customer doesn't want or doesn't want to change or something like that, we don't edit it. We cancel the invoice and we have a duplicate button if we want over here to make it easier, but we create a new invoice and we set a new invoice over here. So the old invoice will still be in here. It'll never be paid. In fact, we'll get to that in a little bit, but we can have invoices that kind of time out after a period of time. And that way they just don't sit there living forever, right? Makes sense? So it's not, so if you want to make the changes, it's FileMaker syncs up the data of the transaction, of what's on it, the dollar amount, things like that. The actual payment itself is stuff that PayPal collects from the customer, and then we are going to go and retrieve that with our request and bring that back into FileMaker, right? So there's kind of some concrete rules, and we don't want to make things crazy and out of hand where people could edit it in here and then it changes it in here, or they edit in here and then change it back here. I mean, it could get crazy and stupid really fast. So does that make sense, John, what I'm saying there?
Yeah. So basically, it's not syncing data. It's asking what the latest information about the certain fields are, is more or less what's happening. So yeah, what you said is pretty accurate in terms of if you were to make changes here, it wouldn't tell us. The only thing is if you were to go into one of these and mark them as paid and then request the status, it would tell you that it's paid. But outside of that, again, you would have to actually request the status, and then it would tell you that it's been paid, and it wouldn't. It's not an automatic sync in any way.
Yeah. So let's talk about what we do. So we create invoices that are active, we leave them active for a period of time. I think we leave them active for 30 or 60 days or something like that.
60 days.
And what we do is when we want to figure out whether an invoice is paid, we have a found set. We do a find for everything that's sent, that's not been paid, that's not been canceled for some reason. And we actually run a loop, and it says, hey, PayPal, has this been paid, yes or no, right? And it goes, yeah, it has been paid, or no, it hasn't. And then we loop to the next record in the found set, and we spin. And we have it do this on a robot, right? Or you could be on an invoice specifically in our system and say, hey, get the status. So like my finance people can say, oh, the customer's on the phone. They said they just paid it. They want to confirm we have it. So they could come over here and press the button and goes, yeah, it's paid. No, it's not, right? Otherwise, the system about once an hour, a robot once an hour, collects all the outstanding ones, all the outstanding non-paid invoices, and it checks them. There is a request from Organ Dean. Those are good questions to have. I can briefly kind of run through the ones that are applicable today. So Organ Dean's asking more of a talk or an informational analysis on the various credit card processing possibilities and PCI compliance and things like that. And that's different conversation than what we're doing today. I don't actually currently have a Stripe integration that's currently available. It basically works very similarly. That being said, the whole point with this technology is that at no time does the FileMaker system actually ever have the credit card, right? We'd never have the credit card. We have no way, if someone say like we gave FileMaker away and our ex-employee had access to FileMaker and got in here and could see people's orders, that person would never have access to the credit card because the credit card is kept completely at PayPal, if it's even there at all. We're not involved with that at all. So really in terms of PCI compliance, there is zero exposure with PCI. Now, GDPR and personal identifying information is basically the idea that if we have people in the system and things like that, we want to make sure that their information is protected. That's fine. That's kind of a different topic. Once again, that's a GDPR kind of conversation. It's more of a European conversation for the most part. But you need to make sure that in terms of the big issue in the United States that gets people snagged is I have some customers who collect people's credit cards. Without their, well, it's not like really it's a secret. It's they give the credit card to the person over the phone. They run the credit card, and then down in the notes field, and this is from like literally 20 years ago, they would just paste the credit card information in there. So if they need to run it again for some reason, they would have it. The problem is that's a violation of PCI because the information is not super well protected. It's not super well encrypted. There's a password on the FileMaker system, but people who, if you get access to a credit card, the system should log the fact that you've had access to that. You've looked at it, you copied, you pasted, you did anything like that. There's a lot of work that goes into protecting credit card information, and it's a business you don't want to be in. And so as a result, you want to have this outside service take care of it for you. Now you can do that. The other service that I would use if you want a pure, what we call a merchant, a merchant provider, right? A merchant account is AuthorizeNet. AuthorizeNet is big, kind of like PayPal, except that AuthorizeNet is really kind of like almost more like a bank, and PayPal is kind of this weird. PayPal's was a .com, a weird startup created by a bunch of people. It makes tons of money. But it's kind of more than a bank, but not really a bank. It's kind of funny how they kind of slide through all the finance rules, financial regulations. But it's important to understand that AuthorizeNet is another option. Their APIs, the way these APIs are structured and set up in here, are totally specific to PayPal, and the coding in here is not going to be useful for pretty much anything else. AuthorizeNet is another service where you can actually have an invoice and fire it off to AuthorizeNet, and AuthorizeNet processes the order, and you can get the data back that way. AuthorizeNet's very, very large. But the people always come to me. There's always someone in the crowd who says, I want Square. I want Stripe. They want the various competing services. We don't have demos for every competing service. If you're looking for that, you could always kind of go to Claris Connect and see, either write your own or go and see if you want them to, and see if they have it. I could jump over here real quick. Hogle, I guess I could, I can't really Claris Connect and see the list of all the automations that they have. App directory. So what do they have? I'm looking for, there's some AWS stuff, Box, app. Claris loves Box. I am not a Box fan, but they love Claris Box, Cloud Sign. They have DocuSign in here. They have DocuSign. I'm surprised they have DocuSign there. That's interesting. That's a very expensive service. There's Dropbox, which is pretty easy to do. In fact, you have a live stream coming up with Dropbox, don't you?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay, cool. So you got Mailgun. Not sure what Mailgun is. Monkey Learn. Let's see. No PayPal. So there's no PayPal. How about AuthorizeNet? AUT. There's no AuthorizeNet. How about Square? Slack. Slack is easy. There's Stripe. So they have a built-in thing on Stripe. You could glue that in. Just keep in mind that every time. So for example, like we have that loop that runs through that checks with PayPal to see if it's paid, right? Every time we do that, Claris would consider that a transaction and keep track of that. And they allow you to have like 500 of those a month or something like that. And so then suddenly, I do 500 of those in an hour, right? Because it's got a set of invoices. It's going to go, the robot's going to bug and talk to their robot, and they are basically communicating as to whether it's paid or not. So how you structure this, you'd have to do it very carefully as to not to explode your piggy bank. So they have Square, or they have Stripe. They don't have Square. So they have one of the four that we're talking about right here. So, so the PCI consideration is a concern. Hogle, have you done any recurring payments with your solution at all over here?
Not with PayPal in terms of making recurring payments. I have done transaction checks of people who have done recurring payments, but it's not been anything. I still never got credit card information. I still basically only received this kind of stuff.
Right. Well, I think you could probably do something in here that would result in a recurring transaction, which means that every month it's going to auto ding that person, say $19.95 a month or something. Like say we set up like a Ruben Moki account, right? And it charges, for the witty memes and questionable conversation, Moki and Ruben collect $9 from everyone on the live stream a month, right? All our transactions are one-offs in this demonstration, but there's always like a million things that you can think about and do. Can you, can you credit someone or refund out of here? That's probably doable. I don't know if we wired that up.
It's doable with the API. It's not something that we built into our demo file or any of our systems, but it is possible.
Yeah. So that was one of those things that, like, did we want to spend another $5,000 on the demo and building that out, or just train the admin staff that once they do a refund every 2 weeks or something like that randomly, because someone overpaid or they don't use the service or whatever happens, and so they log into PayPal and they just can't and they do a refund that way, right? You can do a refund pretty easily within 30, 60, 90 days of PayPal. After that, there's not an unwind function on it. You have to just basically send a payment to them directly. So just keep in mind that credits or refunds have a limited shelf life on PayPal, the way they work. You can't, like, for example, if we invoice someone and it's been 7 months and you want to refund them on that, it's expired. You would just have to issue them a payment, a legit payment to them. However you want to issue a payment to them, it's up to you, but PayPal limits the time that you can unwind a transaction, right? So PayPal accepts guests, so customers do not need to have an account with a payment. Yeah, we talked about this. So we talked about this early on. People get jammed up all the time. Hogle, can you bring up like one of the invoices that needs to be paid? I mean, I was going to dig more into the technical details, but I think this is more this conversation has kind of gone more businessy, which is fine. So So if we want to actually pay this, so if you look over here real quick, it gave you the options of what you could pay. It's fine. It's not going to show them to you, but you have a choice right here. You can pay by logging in with your PayPal account, or you can pay with your debit and credit card. Okay. This right here is screwed a lot of people up because all they do is they see this and they say, once again, I'm kind of reiterating myself again, but they say, I don't want PayPal. I hate PayPal. PayPal, right? Literally. PayPal hates, whatever. They hate pilots or something, whatever. There's every organization pisses someone off, right? I've had people literally refuse to buy services because PayPal doesn't politically agree with their view of life or whatever, right? But they don't understand it says a big or right here. Or. I guess it could be blinking dots. So you come over here and you pay with a regular credit card. And so it works like any system, but it gives you the choice of switch hitting either way. In fact, you see a lot of websites, they give you the choice of using basically these options right here, which is American Express, MasterCard, Visa, Discover Card, or PayPal specific account over here. And so you have a choice. So it actually gives you more options. If you use AuthorizeNet, for example, or Stripe or Square, I think for the most part, you're limited to just the basic credit cards that you can have access to, right? With PayPal, you get that extra, because I don't know any services, worldwide services, that have been quite as ubiquitous as PayPal. PayPal is in everywhere, worldwide. They've done a very good job of absorbing the business market a lot. We have a problem with PayPal holding the money for a while. Okay, so one thing we've seen with PayPal, but this goes for your bank and every other service I've seen, is that anytime you send them a bunch of money and they are not clear on who the sender is, they may impound the money for 3 or 4 or 5, 6, 7 days as they verify it's not a fraudulent transaction. It's a very important concept. I used to be that way. I was really aggravated when I was younger in a business, like 15, 20 years ago, 25 years ago. Customer would pay us. Even Apple would be Apple Computer. Back in the day, it was Apple Computer. And they'd send me a check for, say, a couple months of work, $12,000 or something, whatever it would be. And so I would take the check, because it's the old days. I would take the check, drive down to the bank, give it to the bank. And the bank would say, thank you for your deposit. Your bank account balance is $1,353. And I'm like, where's the 12 grand? Well, we're not really sure it's really real, so we're going to impound it or hold it over here and let it, kind of, cook on the stove or mature, whatever they do, where they verify that it's real. You'll have people who do e-checks, things where they do a debit card or something like that. Sometimes that puts a hold on it too. So you don't get the funds immediately, which means it's kind of funny because if PayPal decides that there's something fraudulent, they'll just unwind it and you don't get the money, right? So what they don't want you to do is getting the 12 grand, spending it, and then they have to take it from you, but you don't have the 12 grand anymore. Ken's talking about get the limits lifted, holds shortened or eliminated, right? So part of it is being in business. Part of it, frankly, is having a big block of money in the checking account or in the savings account or your operating funds account. So if you have 50 grand there or 20 grand there, something like that, and you bring in 12 grand, you may not need the 12 grand immediately, but they're be less stressed about it, because the bank doesn't want to get caught giving you 12 grand and finding out it's not real, or there's a problem where it doesn't settle all the way through. So that's the way that works, especially with checks. Dennis says PayPal has a webhook that allows you to update the invoice statuses automatically. Has a webhook that allows you to update the PayPal statuses automatically. Okay, so Dennis, that's an interesting. Ogle, are you looking at Discord? This is what Dennis says.
Yeah, I'm in Discord now.
Okay, I'm gonna paste it real quick. It's out of YouTube. So this is what Dennis says. So this is a FileMaker kind of consideration issue, right? So when Dennis talking about the IPN?
Yeah, I believe so. That's the webhook that we use to get our instant notification for our video courses and stuff.
So we're not really talking about that, Dennis, because we wanted this to be functional with FileMaker Pro. So here's the issue. This is a bigger strategic issue. If you want to show your face briefly, John, we can talk about this. This is kind of an important concept. A lot of technical people don't understand this. So You install FileMaker Pro on your computer, right? On your Mac or Windows computer, whatever you're using, and you type into it. So you're interacting with it, okay? FileMaker Pro, your version of FileMaker sitting there, is not sitting there on the internet listening for shit to happen. It's not listening for a phone call, right? Waiting to answer the phone, okay? It's generally not capable of doing that. I guess you could install a plugin that you could have it listening for traffic from the internet. The only thing FileMaker Pro does is it talks to the FileMaker server. It can send a print request. It could talk to the operating system to do something, but it's not sitting there listening on the internet, largely because it's on your personal computer. Your personal computer is not a server, okay? So if you want FileMaker to listen for incoming radio traffic, you have to have your walkie-talkie out, have your phone on, and we're listening for the radio traffic, right? So I'm calling the tower to request landing permission at Hayward. Helicopter 0 Foxtrot Mike, requesting to land at taxiway Alpha and Echo, right? The tower people have to be listening. FileMaker Pro doesn't listen. It's not fundamentally part of the product. If you want FileMaker to listen for the inbound traffic from anyone else, it has to be FileMaker server. FileMaker Cloud on the internet generally sucks at doing this. It has security restrictions, so people get jammed up using this with the cloud. And the Claris sales team, we love the Claris sales team, but they don't use the product. They don't even understand the limitations it has. So if you need a copy of FileMaker to listen for inbound traffic, say for example that the inbound traffic is PayPal. PayPal is trying to send you information. It says PayPal 15, I got $500, we're requesting permission to land. Your FileMaker server goes, PayPal, we read you loud and clear. You're cleared to land the $500. Thank you for your information. And they shake hands with JSON. So there's JSON going back and forth, right? So the FileMaker server can listen to that. That is what we call an instant payment notification or instant PayPal notification, or IPN. We use those with our e-commerce side, but we built this specifically so people could use it without FileMaker server, because I run into people who say, I don't want FileMaker server. FileMaker server is too expensive. It's too expensive. Claris charges me too much money. Claris hates me. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. So we made a demo that would work just with FileMaker Pro. Now, because FileMaker Pro, and it's a little inefficient this way, but since FileMaker Pro can't listen, then what we do is we give it a list of all the invoices that we are expecting money on. And so what it actually has to do is go out there and go, hey, PayPal, anything on this one? No. PayPal, what about invoice 2? Invoice 3? Invoice 4? Loop, 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 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And it grinds for like 3 or 4 minutes, and then it's done. Now, is that the most efficient thing? No. But from a training perspective and from a simple implementation perspective, it's easy to grasp. But we run into a lot of times with, like, we're working on this new SMS service for those of you, and this will be a big conversation here, where we're trying to have sending out an SMS message out of FileMaker is easy. Hey, Hogle, would you like a hot date at the movie theater? And I'll bring the popcorn, right? And it's your girlfriend who sends you a message, right? Out of FileMaker. She has a file, she types it in 3 fields. FileMaker sends a script. It's a push. It's a push notification to SMS. Then you reply back and say, oh yeah, sounds like a hot date, right? And I have a ring for you. I'm going to propose to you. And you reply back, and it goes to PayPal or goes to the SMS service, and the SMS service wants to talk back to FileMaker, except FileMaker's not listening. FileMaker Pro doesn't listen. So whenever you have an inbound conversation, you have to think about who the hell is going to be on the radio 24/7 listening for that phone call. What process in the world of FileMaker runs 24/7 and is available all the time unless it crashes? FileMaker server. And it's a very, very, very important, very, very important thing. Yeah, Hogle has to keep smiling, right? That's an important thing. Keep smiling, John. So Dennis has a really great thing there. Yeah, Dennis says you can use a web page to listen and then use FileMaker API to write to the database. Yes, we do that. That is a totally different conversation than what we're doing today. That requires the data API, which is a totally separate skill set. That's custom web pages. PHP is in there. FileMaker servers in there. We got to get Jacob Taylor in there. And to wire that all, we've done training on data API and on that. And it took 2 days. We provided basic training for people on how to build like a custom web page. For all you folks, we had very little engagement on that because that's literally pro code. That's not low code. Low code, we're on the edge of, this is not really low code anymore. We built it for you. It works. And so that's about as low code as it's going to get, right? But, you know, that's the rub with this, right? So it gets more technically deep. The more advanced you do, the more technically deep it is required. Or you go to Claris Connect, which of the 4 services we're talking about today, they only offer one of them, and they're going to charge you through the nose for it, right? So generally when people say something about Claris Connect, it doesn't do it. And then in my case, they want to overcharge me for it. So, yeah, Peter Gaines has got to go. We're past time on this. So if you're interested in more information on the PayPal page, I'm going to pivot and go back to our page real quick. And then for Amy, Sheely, she's there or gone. Megan's there, Jake is there. So maybe they're off having a business meeting. If you go to FM Starting Point, go to the Starting Point website right here, Starting Point. You go to Marketplace and you want the page with the videos on this quick PayPal stuff. This is once again driven by FileMaker. It's basically a push communication to PayPal. FileMaker is initiating and pushing the conversation. It's not listening for the inbound communication. We could do that, but I'm pretty sure if this caused all your little brains to explode, then that one, no one would show up to it. I would just be like, why bother, right? So Suko says, can you send payouts and payments with the solution? Can you do a demo for sending payments? We don't have a demo set up for sending payments, although
it is possible, yes, but it is not something that we have currently set up.
Yeah, but keep in mind when you send money with PayPal, you can't. I guess you could send it to a credit card, couldn't you? You could load money on someone's credit card. Not something we do too often, but I guess you could do that, right? Send a payment to a credit card. Yeah, we don't have a demo for that, Para. It'd be doable. John here could do it for you if you need it done. I don't know what to tell you. I'm not trying to sell services or anything like that, but I mean, everyone has a different like little niche request. If you want to ask a question about that, just send the email to support@rcconsulting.com. We'll let you have a conversation with John, and at least for the basic conversation of discussing this, there's no charge for that. If you actually want him to build it for you, then there'd be a PayPal payment requirement from that. So anyway, I appreciate everyone. Megan, thank you very much. Blair, Forma, banks would give you, gives a good comment. Banks would give you $100 on a check deposit and make more sure the checks didn't bounce. Yeah, so Blair was talking about this what Ken was talking about, where you get money in and it kind of gets held up or held hostage, right? Like bad guys waiting for things to get cleared out. Yeah, so Para, send an email to support RC Consulting. You can talk to John directly about sending payments out. It's doable. You just have to change the API, right? And you have to be into that, and you have to be a kind of guy, gal, whoever who likes to do that, right? Margaret learned. A lot of you did a lot of JSON yesterday with Margaret. So I don't know if Margaret's still there or not. But Margaret, you had a good day yesterday learning this stuff with Kyle?
Yes, I did.
Yep. So this is like even more advanced, right? So you're dealing with money and stuff. So I appreciate everyone today. Make sure to come back tomorrow. We have another exciting broadcast for those of you wondering about tomorrow, what's going on. If we go to fmtraining.tv and you go to the upcoming live stream, you can see the upcoming broadcast schedule. Tomorrow is going to be Wolfpack 6. Minor update with some updated add-ons, things like that. So feel free. I think we'll have Kyle here. We'll have Christian here, as well as Calvin. And any questions you have about add-ons along the way, if we can throw those in and answer those questions, we'd be happy to do that. So tomorrow, 1 o'clock at fmtrain.tv, a live stream. We'll see you here. And then I have to do the closing. There we go. Yay!
just stepped up the whole way. Calm, cool, collected the quarterback. Great read, good patience. More importantly, great job up front protecting this quarterback to give you a chance. And that's all you can ask for.
Trying to rally down 10. 9:25 to go here in the fourth. Short motion by Amendola from the left. Brady takes the shotgun snap, stands in, throws it left for Amendola, reaches up and snacks a high throw and lands inside the 10, rolling to the 9. Ball slightly behind him, but Danny makes the grab.